He was abandoned by his own parents, but fate had other plans. From the moment Liam Bennett was born, he was unwanted. His parents, Mark and Evelyn Bennett, were successful, wealthy, and deeply invested in their prestigious reputations. A child was never part of their grand plan, and when Liam arrived, he was seen as nothing more than a burden. For the first few years of his life, he was raised by nannies, barely seeing his parents except for the occasional formal dinner where he was expected to behave like an accessory to their perfect lives. Love was never given to him, and warmth was something he only read about in books. At the age of 10, his world shattered completely. One evening, he overheard a conversation that changed everything. His parents, tired of the inconvenience he brought into their lives, had decided to send him away. They framed it as boarding school, but in reality, it was an orphanage disguised as a charitable institution. The last thing he saw of them was the cold, indifferent look on their faces as they turned away, leaving him standing at the doorstep of a strange new world. The orphanage was nothing like the life he had known. Gone were the luxurious halls, the expensive clothes, and the privileges of wealth. Instead, he found himself in a cramped dormitory filled with other abandoned children, each carrying their own pain. For the first time, Liam had to fight for everything: food, a warm bed, and even the right to be acknowledged. He learned to be tough, to hide his emotions, and to rely on no one but himself. The bitterness of rejection settled deep in his heart, but he never let it break him. Despite the struggles, Liam was intelligent and resourceful. While others gave up, he spent hours in the tiny orphanage library, devouring every book he could find. He studied relentlessly, pushing himself beyond limits because he knew that knowledge was the only way out of this life. By the time he was 16, he had outgrown the orphanage. With no family to claim him, he was left to fend for himself. He took on small jobs, worked long hours, and saved every penny. He lived in cheap apartments, sometimes even sleeping on park benches when money ran out. But he never lost sight of his goal: to prove to the world, and most importantly to himself, that he was more than the boy his parents discarded. At 18, he earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university. While others celebrated their privileged lives, Liam worked harder than anyone else. He studied business, learned everything about the corporate world, and networked with the right people. By 25, he had launched his own company, Bennett Enterprises. It started as a small tech firm, but within a few years, it became one of the most successful companies in the industry. Liam, once abandoned and forgotten, was now a self-made millionaire. He never sought revenge, never wasted time dwelling on the past, but fate had a way of bringing things full circle. One evening, Liam received an email from an unfamiliar sender. Out of curiosity, he opened it, and his past came rushing back. It was from Mark and Evelyn Bennett. His parents. Their once thriving business had collapsed. Investments had failed, debts had piled up, and their lavish lifestyle had crumbled. They had lost everything: their home, their fortune, and the reputation they had worked so hard to protect. And now, they were desperate. They had heard of Liam's success, of his growing empire, and they needed his help. They requested a meeting, begging for his support, pleading for a second chance. For a moment, he considered ignoring the email. After all, they had abandoned him when he needed them the most. But something inside him urged him to see them, perhaps not for closure, but for the final confirmation that he had won. The meeting was arranged in a modest cafe, a far cry from the grand settings they were once accustomed to. When he arrived, he saw them immediately. They looked different, older, weaker, burdened by the weight of their failures. They didn't recognize him at first. Then realization dawned in their eyes. Liam, the son they had cast aside, stood before them as a man they could no longer control, a man far more powerful than they had ever been. He listened as they spoke, their voices filled with desperation. They asked for help, financial support, anything to keep them afloat. Liam could have turned away, could have ignored them as they had ignored him. But he didn't. Instead, he calmly explained that he had built everything on his own. That he had survived because of his resilience, not because of them. And that while he had no interest in revenge, he also had no intention of letting them back into his life. They had made their choice years ago. Now, he was making his. He left them there, in the same desperation they had once condemned him to. Because fate had other plans for him. And this time, he was the one in control.